Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the right of unpaid seller. First of all, we need to understand who is unpaid seller. As per the section 45 of Contract of Sale of Goods Act 1930, the unpaid seller is the person whose whole price has not been paid or tendered. Secondly, when a bill of exchange or negotiable instrument has been received as a conditional payment, but the condition has not been fulfilled, and even you can say the bill of exchange or negotiable instrument is dishonored. Now, if the seller is unpaid, what type of right he has? The unpaid seller has the many right he can use, but these right against the goods also and against the buyer also. First of all, we need to discuss the right of seller against the goods. Against the goods, there are the two categories. Right of the seller against the goods, where the property of goods is transferred to the buyer. And the second category is the right of seller against the goods when the property of the seller is not transferred to the buyer. Now, the property means ownership, the ownership of goods. First right is the right of lien under the category of right of seller against the goods where the property of goods is transferred to the buyer. Lien means right to retain the possession of goods. Lien means right of retain the possession of goods until the payment in respect of them is not paid. And the unpaid seller of goods can retain the goods if the following cases are satisfied. Very first, where the goods have been sold on credit, but the payment has not been on the promised date. And the secondly, where the goods have been sold on credit, but the term of credit has expired. And the third, where the buyer become insolvent. But the seller can exercise these rights only if these two following conditions are satisfied. Very first, unpaid seller must have in actual possession of goods. We are talking about the right of lien. Obviously, right of lien हम तभी यूज कर सकते हैं जब एक्चुअल में उसके पास गुड्स की पोजेशन है. अगर वो पोजेशन ही लॉस्ट कर चुके हैं, मतलब वो ऑलरेडी बायर को डिलीवर कर चुके हैं, तो वो ये राइट यूज नहीं कर सकता. Secondly, the unpaid seller can retain the goods only for the payment of the price of goods. Now, how can this right can terminate it? Okay, very first by delivery to the carrier, but carrier belongs to buyer. If the carrier belongs to buyer and the goods is already delivered to the carrier for purpose of transmission to the buyer, then we can say the right of lien is lost. But the sellers still have right to stop in transit. We will discuss the next right after the termination of lien. Secondly, by delivery to the buyer. Obviously, if the right goods has been transferred to the buyer, then obviously right of lien is lost. Third, by waiver. When the seller has waived the right of lien, which may be expressed or implied, and right of lien is terminated. Fourth, that by tender of price. Tender of price means the buyer has already paid the price for goods. Then seller has no more remain as unpaid seller and the right of lien obviously is lost. Now, in case if the right of lien is lost by seller, but the goods in transit, then he has the second right, that is right to stoppage in transit. Right to stoppage means right to stop further transit of goods and to retain same till the price is paid. But for this, seller को in transit से वो goods वापस अपने पास लेके आनी पड़ेंगी and वापस there's a need to retain the goods and need to gain the possession of goods. And right can be exercised under the following condition. Very first, seller must be unpaid. Buyer has become insolvent. And third, the goods are in the course of transit but not reached in the possession of buyer. अगर वो buyer के possession में पहुंच ही गई तो obviously उसने right of lien तो lost कर ही दिया था. Even right to stop in transit be lost हो. And fourth, Seller can stop the goods in transit only for the payment of price of goods. अगर payment हो चुकी है तो वो ये right use नहीं कर सकता. You can read the example. P of Calcutta sold the goods to Q of Mumbai. P delivered the goods to the railway for the purpose of transmission to the Q. And Q became insolvent before the goods reached to him. In this case, P give notice to the railway and stop the goods from reaching Q until the price is paid. Now, how this right can be terminated? Interception by the buyer. Obviously, if the buyer or his agent, अगर दोनों में से कोई भी उसकी डिलीवरी ऑब्टेन कर लेता है तो वो राइट टर्मिनेट हो गया. या कैरियर्स एक्नॉलेज टू द बायर. अगर कैरियर मतलब जिस पर्सन के थ्रू आप बायर को डिलीवरी भेज रहे हो, अगर उसने उसको लाइक इन्फॉर्म कर दिया, एक्नॉलेज कर दिया, एंड he is saying कि मैं and he is saying कि मैं गुड्स को अपने पास होल्ड कर रहा हूं एज ए बेली ऑफ बायर, तो ऑब्वियसली बायर को एक्नॉलेज हो गया गुड्स की डिलीवरी मेरे लिए हो चुकी है. इस केस में राइट ऑफ स्टॉपेज इन ट्रांजिट जो है स्टॉप हो जाएगा, मतलब ये भी लॉस्ट हो गया. हाउ द राइट ऑफ स्टॉपेज इन ट्रांजिट इज एक्सरसाइज्ड, मतलब कैसे हो सकता है. हम राइट ऑफ लियन की तो बात कर रहे थे कि यू कैन यूज दिस राइट इफ यू हैव द पोजेशन. सेम इन केस ऑफ द राइट ऑफ स्टॉपेज इन ट्रांजिट, you need to take the possession of goods back. ठीक है, seller wants to take the possession of goods back. और secondly, या by giving notice of his claim to the carrier, उसको carrier को inform करना पड़ेगा, due to the insolvency of the buyer, I want to get the possession of goods back. Now, third right. This is the main right. We know कि in case the seller has no option to retain the goods and to get the money of goods, मतलब get the payment of the goods, तो उस case में he has right of resale. In addition to the right of lien and stoppage in transit, unpaid seller has the valuable right of resale of the goods. But for this, resale right को use करने के लिए भी he needs to fulfill these conditions. Very first, where the goods are of perishable nature. Goods perishable nature की है and you know कि buyer will not pay and you need कि आप इसे next buyer को sale कर दें, otherwise वो perish हो जाए. Secondly, when the unpaid seller has exercised his the right of lien or stoppage in transit, he can give notice to the buyer of his intention. मतलब before the reselling of the goods, he need to inform to the buyer if after the right of lien and stoppage in transit, if he will not give the payment of the goods, then he will resell the goods. But after giving notice to the buyer, even then buyer is not paying the amount, then seller has right to retain the possession of goods. Third, where the seller has expressly reserved the right of resale in case the buyer makes default. मतलब आपस में उन्होंने understand किया हुआ था, in case मतलब उनमें ये condition थी, अगर seller default करेगा तो वो ये right अपने पास reserve रख लेगा, मतलब उसके पास ये right reserve है और वो इस goods को sale कर दे. Now, we were talking about in the category of against the goods, we have two main rights. Right of seller against the goods where the property is transferred to the buyer. Now the next is right of seller against the goods when the property of goods is not transferred to the buyer. Very first, right of withholding delivery. Sometimes the goods ownership of the goods sold is not transferred to the buyer. In that case, there's no need to right to resale the goods. Resale में तो that means एक बार आप buyer को ownership transfer कर चुके थे and now you are informing कि if he will not make payment, he will resell the goods. तो उस केस में ये राइट ऑफ रीसेल तो तभी यूज हो सकता है where the goods property of the goods is transferred to the buyer. But if not transferred, then the seller has the main right of withholding delivery. And right of withholding delivery is the combination of, you can say it is the co-extensive with the right of lien and right of stoppage in transit. Where the contract is executory, मतलब that is not executed, complete नहीं हुआ, अभी performance में था, performing, and there's a no obligation on the part of seller to the complete. और अब जब वो executed ही नहीं है, executory contract है, तो seller के पास ऐसी कोई obligation नहीं है कि वो उसको complete करे. Even knows this thing कि buyer is failed to make payment. अगर उसको पता चल गया कि बायर पेमेंट नहीं करेगा, तो ऑब्वियसली सेलर अब आगे उसको अपने उसके साथ कोई डील नहीं करेगा और उसको पोजेशन भी नहीं देगा. तो उस केस में ही कैन यूज द टू co-extensive right of lien and stoppage in transit. इसलिए this is called a right of withholding delivery. Now, third main category, right of unpaid seller against the buyer. अभी तक जितने हमने राइट किए, we were talking about the right of seller against the goods. अब बायर के अगेंस्ट उसके क्या राइट है? Obviously, पहली बात तो ये है कि he can suit for price, where the contract of sale, where the property of goods has been transferred to the buyer, and the goods actually comes into his possession. ट्रांसफर प्रॉपर्टी हो चुकी है, गुड्स बायर की पोजेशन में है. अब सेलर के पास अपने वो तीन राइट तो यूज कर ही नहीं सकता, वो राइट ऑफ लियन, स्टॉपेज इन ट्रांसिट या रीसेल. Then he just has option only suit for price. The unpaid seller remedy is suit for price. मतलब वो बार बार उसके against sue करेगा price के लिए. Secondly, suit for the damages for the non-acceptance of goods. अब in case अगर buyer wrongfully neglect कर रहा है और refuse कर रहा है goods को accept करने में, तो seller उसके लिए भी उसको sue कर सकता है for damages for non-acceptance, कि आप accept नहीं कर रहे. उस केस में अगर seller को किसी तरह की damages होती हैं, तो seller will sue. Third category, where there is the available market of the goods. Obviously, अब हमें damages तो measure करने ही पड़ेंगे, और अगर damages measure करने के लिए कोई market है, तो उस केस में जो जिस प्राइस पे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुआ था, या सेकेंडली जो मार्केट प्राइस है ब्रीच ऑफ द डेट में, दोनों में जो डिफरेंस होगा, तो वो डिफरेंस सेलर बायर को सेलर को पे करना पड़ेगा. थर्ड, अगर कोई मार्केट नहीं है, मतलब आप डैमेजेस मेजर नहीं कर सकते, तो उस केस में आप एस्टिमेटेड डैमेजेस लोगे. एंड द फिफ्थ कैटेगरी, सूट फॉर इंटरेस्ट. सूट फॉर इंटरेस्ट में बेसिकली क्या होता है कि अगर कोई अमाउंट ड्यू है, फॉर 3 months ड्यू है, आप वो 3 months के साथ साथ उस अमाउंट के ऊपर 3 months का इंटरेस्ट भी डिमांड कर रहे हो एज ए डैमेजेस. सो दीज वर राइट्स ऑफ अनपेड सेलर. बट इन केस आपको क्वेश्चन आता है, व्हाट आर द वेरियस रेमेडीज फॉर द ब्रीच ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, द ब्रीच बाय बायर एंड द ब्रीच बाय सेलर. These the suit for price, suit for damages, yeah, third, fourth, fifth, right? These all are right if there's a breach by buyer. But if the breach by seller, then we can use these right. Obviously, it will be opposite. In case of the breach by buyer, there's a suit for price. And in case of breach by seller, there would be suit for performance. Matlab, he needs to perform his part of duty. If there's a suit for the non-acceptance of goods, and there will be suit for the non-delivery of goods. And if there's a suit for the damages for the anticipatory breach, and there's a due same right, the suit for the damages for the anticipatory breach. Anticipatory breach means breach होने से पहले आप एक मतलब या तो कोई मार्केट है damages measure करने की, where you can measure the damages between the market price and contract price. If there's no damage, there's no market, then you can just claim the damages which you want. ठीक है, but वो like excess damages भी नहीं होने चाहिए, वो damages जो buyer या seller agree हो pay करने. And the third, suit for interest. I have already explained if the amount is due for the 3 months, and with that amount you are claiming the interest on that 3 months amount. So these were the right of unpaid seller and the remedies for the breach of contract. Thank you so much.